Good morning, everybody. It is a cold but beautiful Melbourne morning, and I'm very excited to be here. It is one of those things that I've been meaning to do for quite a while, but I decided that it was finally time to do it. It was actually on my official getting things done list for this quarter. Actually, funnily enough, I'll just share this with you that I recently did a massive office cleanup. I know it probably didn't look it behind me, but I did a huge office cleanup. And I found my journal, which I write in only when I have kind of super important stuff. I'm not a journaler every day. I wish I was, actually, but I'm not. So I found my journal and I was flicking through it just to see what was in it, and I found my goals for the second quarter of the year. And it's pretty unusual for me to have a quarter's goal, but obviously this quarter I did. And it had 10 different things in it, and I discovered last Friday when I cleaned my office that it had all these goals in it, and the only goal that I had not actually achieved was running a webinar. And funnily enough, I actually had achieved every single other one, which just proves my theory that writing down goals makes an enormous difference to actually getting them done. And I'd actually completely forgotten about that list, which is quite funny that I'd utterly forgotten about it. I just completely forgot it was there, but there you go. And so it actually prompted me to then create a list for the next quarter. But the next quarter is going to be really interesting because I'm spending a whole month of it traveling in the US, teaching and visiting my family, and I'm super excited to go and do that. So if you've just logged on to watch this, let me just say good morning, and secondly, apologize for the fact that I sound a little bit nasally, but that's because I've had a really bad head cold this past week, and the damn thing does not want to go away. So if I stop to blow my nose, apologies in the meantime. So from a housekeeping point of view, if you're watching this via Google+, in the bottom right corner of your screen, you should have Ask a Question. So you should feel free to ask a question, and it will pop up in my box, and I'll see it, and I'll be able to read it and respond. But happily enough, I actually got a heap of questions sent to me by email, so I'm going to go through those ones first. And then as I'm answering those, you can either respond to me if you like, or you can submit your own questions as well. I have no intention of selling anything, no intention of telling you about any programs unless it happens to come up. Just really going to answer heaps of questions that people have sent me. If you're just tuning in, you'll know that I did this because it was on my goal list, and it was the one thing I hadn't achieved yet. And I think the quarter ends tomorrow. Yeah, June 30th. Quarter ends tomorrow, so I had to get it in and make it happen. So I'll tell you what. Let's just start with the easiest question I got via email, which made me laugh the most because I thought it was kind of hilarious. And you'll see this is how high-tech I am, right? I'm using little Post-its. I wrote all my questions down that people had emailed me on a little Post-it note so that I'd know which ones I'd answered and which ones I hadn't, because, we're very high-tech here at Quag, right? Immensely high-tech. All right, so let's just jump in, right? And we'll see how we go from there. Again, if you're just joining me, feel free, and you're watching it on Google+, feel free to pop any questions in the question box. Otherwise, I'll just talk. I plan on being here probably for about an hour today. If it runs overtime, then apologies, but I'm a talker. And if it doesn't run overtime, then it doesn't. So we'll see how we go. Okay, so the very first question that I got, which made me laugh because there was only one right thing to do, was, "Hi, Michelle, do you reply to every email yourself?" Which was funny only because I thought, well, do I reply to her or do I answer it on the webinar thing? I did actually reply to her, and the answer is yes, I answer every email myself, which is why sometimes there's a little bit of a delay because I'm only one person and I only answer so many emails. So all the other questions had to do with business, but that one just made me laugh. Do I answer emails myself? Yes, I do. I don't have any staff at this point who answer emails. It's just okay, so this one was from a woman named Queen, and this I thought was a really interesting question. I don't think anybody's ever actually asked me this before, which was interesting. She said, "How do I save up money in my business? I just seem to spend it all." Now, I don't think she meant from the point of view of her expenses are really high or anything. I think she just meant, like, I get some money and I go out and I pay for stuff, and then I go, oh, there's money in my account, and I spend it again and whatever. That's my dog sneezing. Thanks, Ted. Yeah, keeping it real. So I don't think she meant like her expenses are super high. I think she just meant she wants to save up for bigger things in her business or for it to do courses or whatever, and isn't managing to save up any money because she just spends it. Now, we've all met that person who kind of money burns a hole in their pocket. You know, like I mean, I'm a little bit like that as well. That you have $20 and you're like, whoa, I have $20, and you just kind of can't resist spending it. So the way that I've handled this, and the suggestion I make to Queen is this: actually open up a second business banking account, whether that's like a savings account or like an online account or whatever. Second, really simple one with no fees, one that doesn't have anything attached to it, no credit cards attached to it, no incentive schemes attached to it, no frequent flyers, nothing, no bells and whistles. The simplest online bank account you can find. And then in your existing business bank account, set up an auto pay so that it automatically withdraws a set amount of money each week that goes into that savings account. Now, I would suggest to her and to anybody else watching this, start out really small, like $10. I don't even care what it is. The point is that you want to get into that habit of the money going across to the savings account weekly, and you want it to be an amount that it's not going to make or break your business, but it's enough that you actually are starting to build up a cushion of savings. And the reason why we set it up as an automatic repay is so that you're not noticing it going out, and it's not relying on you to send that money out. It's not relying on you to remember each week, oh, I've got to put that money out, I've got to put that money aside, oh, did I do that, oh, did I whatever? Because what's going to happen is, not only are you going to forget, but you're going to come up with every excuse under the sun why you can't do it. Oh, I've got this big bill this week, oh, I've got that happening this week, whatever. Set it up almost like you're setting up a salary, right? So seriously, $10 a week, whatever it is, and have that automatically moved across to another account every week. My other suggestion on that is that's a really good thing to do, not only for savings, as in trying to build up a cushion. It's also a really good thing to do if you need to pay taxes. So that's how I do this as well. I don't worry about at the end of the month going, oh, how much do I need to put aside for taxes? I automatically pull money out of my account every week. I set it up ages ago as tax money, so that then when my tax bill comes in, I've got an account filled with money that I just go, cool, awesome, I can pay that now, and it's not a problem. Or suppose my tax bill comes and it's, I don't know, $1,000 or something, but in my savings I've only got 500. Well, no big deal. It's easier to find the other half than it is to find that whole big parcel of money, because I've been putting away that money aside the whole time. So set up a second business account. I suggest an online one only because usually they have little or no fees, and set up an auto pay from your main business account into that one for savings and or tax. It really works. We do this as a family as well, actually. We do this that every month a certain amount of money goes off into savings, and we don't touch it until obviously we get to the point where we need to use it for something. And we try to be really disciplined about that. We try to kind of go, okay, do we actually need to dive into our savings for that or not? And the way we become disciplined about it is we generally attach a purpose to it. So, we might call, for this year, we might call it the vacation fund. For next week, next year, not next week, we might call it the renovation fund or whatever. We actually attach a purpose to it, and it works really well that way. So set it up as an automatic payment so you're not worrying about it, and that'll help you put money aside. Okay. Hi, Michelle. This one is, do I need a website? Facebook seems to be working fine. I used to have a website, but nobody ever went to it, and so I couldn't see the value in keeping it going. Nobody ever came to it. Okay, so basically, do I need a website if Facebook works for me? Okay, so my unequivocal answer to this is yes, absolutely, you do. No questions asked. This is not optional. Not optional. If you're planning a long-term business, not optional. So why do I think that having a website is not optional? Look, I think a couple of years ago, you could probably get away with having a business entirely on Facebook, and certainly there are plenty of people out there who still manage that and who get plenty of business through Facebook, do most of their correspondence with clients through Facebook. There's a lot of people out there who that seems to be working for quite well. But equally, there are a lot of people out there for whom that is no longer working, because, as we know, Facebook's a really busy place. Less people are seeing your posts organically. It's become much more crowded, and it's not really a fantastic place to conduct business anymore. I think to a degree you still can. Like, I certainly answer emails or messages via Facebook still. I still do a little bit of interaction there, but you can't really run a whole business off the back of Facebook. And I'll give you a couple of reasons for why I think you need a website. So the first is you're not in control of social media at all. You don't own those sites, you don't run those sites, you don't control those sites. You're basically borrowing their real estate. And that's great, but let's think about what happens when you're renting or when you're borrowing someone's real estate. The landlord comes along and goes, yep, I need that back now, see ya, bye, and gets rid of you, and you have no control over it. I wouldn't want to be putting my whole business in the hands of a company I have no say in. And there's been quite a few people who've had business pages deleted or disabled or whatever, and anybody who's had that experience knows that getting it back again is a pain in the ass. It's a major pain to deal with them. Customer service, not Facebook's strong suit. So I wouldn't be putting my business in the hands of somebody who I couldn't control or I couldn't be in charge of. And look, if they pull the plug on it tomorrow, not that they will, but if they pull the plug on it tomorrow, you're stuffed. You have no way to get in touch with people. You have no way to say, hey, I'm here and I still make cake. No way to showcase your work. No way for people to find you. It's too risky to leave it in the hands of somebody else, in my opinion. The other thing to remember is not everyone is on social media. I learned this lesson the hard way. I actually put a bunch of time and money into my social media with my shop front. And then I found that I would ask customers who came in the door and I'd say, hey, are you our friend on Facebook? And they'd go, oh, no. So it's really funny how it really translates that your real life clients are often not on social media, or if they are, they're not necessarily interacting with you. I'm not saying don't use it by any means. I think it's a wonderful tool, but just be aware that all your potential clients are not necessarily all hanging out on social media. One of the other bonuses to a website immediately makes you look more professional, and I think this is something that home-based businesses really struggle with. They struggle with it because the consumer hears home-based business and they think that this means it should be less expensive or quality isn't as good or whatever. Naturally, we just have a bit of a bias. I won't say against, we have a bias when it comes to home-based businesses. So when you have a website, even if you're home-based, it immediately gives you a legitimacy that you're not going to get. If somebody wants to work with you and they're looking for a really high-end professional, and they say, oh, what's your website? And you go, oh, it's just Facebook. Doesn't give a great impression. Really, just not great. So I think you need. It's good to have that kind of legitimacy there. The other thing about it is why I think you should have a website is it allows you to communicate more information than you can communicate via Facebook. So on the Facebook About page of a business, you can put a lot of information, but not really. And then people have to kind of do a lot of clicking around to find your photos and a lot of clicking around to find your hourly rate. You can actually communicate a lot more, including like your terms and conditions, whether or not you do delivery, etc. It actually gives you the opportunity on a website to give a lot more information that's a lot more relevant to people. And the last reason I think you should have a website is that people, generally speaking, don't shop via social media. So what do I mean by this? Imagine, if you think about yourself, right, the last time you went to buy something, I don't care what it was, cake, book, anything, right, camera, whatever you went to buy, okay, TV, etc., even food, really, you generally don't go to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and shop via those mediums, right? You might go look at hashtag television or hashtag cake or hashtag sale or something, but you're not really going to shop there as your first point of call. For most people who are shopping online or looking at things online before they shop in the real world, their first port of call is a search engine, be that Google or Bing or whatever they're using, right? And so they're going to start at the search engine, and what they're going to start looking for is the thing they want. Then, unless they have already had contact with you and your business name, and they know exactly what business name to look for, generally speaking, they're going to go to Google and they're going to put birthday cakes Minneapolis, or they're going to put birthday cakes Johannesburg, or they're going to put, I don't know, chocolate cake Miami, or they're going to put wedding cake Sydney, or whatever it is they're going to put in. They're not going to put in your business name unless they've already heard of it. Now, once they put in wedding cake Johannesburg or whatever, and 10 companies come up, that's when they're going to start digging for more information. That's when they're going to start looking at Facebook pages, clicking through to Instagram feeds, all that kind of stuff. And, it's called the web for a reason, okay? Imagine what an actual spider web looks like. There's like all these connections everywhere. So their entry point is generally not Facebook or not social media. So if that's the only place they can find you, you're missing out on a whole lot of business. So I'm actually going to cover this in a course I'm doing later in the year. But just briefly, let me tell you that when you have a website, it doesn't have to be fancy. You can do it free on Wix or on WordPress. You can do it for free in a whole lot of places, okay? But at the very least, you basically want to have who you are, like as in what you do. We make cakes in Bristol or whatever it is, how they can reach you, a couple of photographs of your work, and some basic information. You can just, if you just want to start out with a static page, then really, that's totally a good place to start. Static page, meaning don't click on anything other than, contact us sort of thing. So to begin with, if all you had was your company name, a brief sentence or two about what you do, a couple of beautiful photographs, and please don't put crappy photos on there, and here's how you contact us, that's a better start than having nothing. And frankly, to pay $12 a year, whatever it is, to have your own domain and have a static page will do you a lot better than having nothing. I'd rather you had something than nothing. And I think people get very overwhelmed by websites, and they feel like it has to be some huge, amazing thing from the get-go. It totally doesn't. You start with one page, and then you grow over time. Just like your cake skills improved over time, and you're more able as you have more money and time to do stuff. Same thing with a website. But to not have one, I think, is a big mistake. So I wouldn't have one. And, when was it? A few months ago, I think. Facebook actually went down, like legitimately down for like 10 minutes or something, and the whole world freaked out. And I personally thought, well, everybody who has a cake business is going to be freaking out for real. Not a good thing to rely on others for that sort of stuff. Personally, it just scares me, really. Okay, so I'm going to carry on to the next question. If you guys want to comment, leave a question, say hello, whatever you want to do, you can do that in the Q&A box. Otherwise, I'll just kind of carry on because, well, I'm going to time. I have a lot of sticky notes. My whole desk is like, I know you can't see it, my whole desk is covered in them. So it's kind of cool. Also, I talk really quickly. So if you're like, hey, Michelle, slow down, enough, stop talking, whatever, then, remind me to slow down, because otherwise I will just and keep talking forever. Okay, so this one says, I've got my pricing right, but I just don't think I can make enough money doing this without burning out. Now what? Actually, I love this question. I love this question because she says she's got her pricing right. I have no idea if she has a pricing right or not, but she believes she does, and that's the important part. So I don't think I can make enough money doing this without burning out. So that's kind of an interesting question, because it wasn't clear from the original email if she's saying, I just feel like no matter how hard I work, I'll never make enough money. It's a little bit unclear what she's saying there. But, okay. You can kind of approach this from a few different angles, really. One of the questions I do get asked a lot is there any money in this industry? I get asked that all the time. So that's the angle I'm going to take with her. I don't think I can make enough money doing this. So I think sometimes it can feel like you are working your ass off and not making any money, and you're feeling like no matter how many cakes I make, I'll never get ahead. So let me say, this is not a high-value industry just on the product alone. I don't know that anybody else is going to admit that out loud. Can you make a living? Absolutely. Can you make a lot of money? Absolutely. But we are dealing with products that are not a fortune. And so, most of us start under $100 or under $200 or whatever it is. And so if you're planning on making $1 billion and it's just you, and you only ever want it to be you, that's going to be rough, right? There's only so many hours in the day. You're only one person. Physically, there's only so much you can handle, etc. I do think that if in this industry you're wanting to make a really good living, it is absolutely possible. And by the way, by good living, I mean more than just a salary you would make somewhere else. That's my definition of that, is if I was working for somebody else, could I make more working for myself? The answer is yes. But I think that the way to do that is to diversify. I don't honestly think it's possible to do hugely well as a single person. If you're a single person with employees, yes, because then you can increase your output, and you can move on and create more than a single person can create. But in order to make a real decent living, I think the way to do it is to diversify. So what do I mean by diversify? I mean offer stuff other than just single product. So my own business had 6 different forms of income in it. Let's see if I can remember them all. Okay, so we had normal cake, which obviously was, celebration cakes, birthday cakes, wedding cakes, etc. I used to print and sell edible images. That came about because I used to order them online from another company, and they were costing me like between 50 and 20 bucks a pop. And a $100 cake, let's just call it 100 bucks, 20 bucks of that for an edible image, crazy. And I think I had a couple of incidents where like they ripped or whatever, and I was panicking and freaking out and whatever. And at that time, edible images were not used as much as they are now. So I think I had a couple of bad incidents that I was like, oh my God. And so I invested in my own edible ink printer and paper and stuff. And then I realized, well, hang on a minute. If I'm got it, then I can sell it. And so I did. And so we had cake. We had edible images that I would sell and post to other people. I used to hire out my cake stands. So at that time, cupcakes were hugely popular. And the clear tiered cupcake stands. Again, I needed to invest in those for my own clients. But I'm like, well, every time I'm not using it and it's sitting here in my kitchen, it's basically losing money for me. So I started renting those out. Doesn't require a lot of time or effort. Can be a little bit annoying to have to chase people down. But again, just like cake, I kept my terms and conditions on those really, really clear so that it wasn't hard to get money back if somebody broke it or whatever. I used to hire out cake pans. Same thing. I had this insane collection of those Wilton-shaped cake pans because everybody starts out with those, I think. Well, they did then. Maybe not so much now, but they did then. All sorts of bizarre shapes, and also some really basic ones, like a number 1 and a number 2, and a heart and a star. And what else did I have? All sorts of bits and pieces, really. And so I used to hire those out as well. Really easy to do. Then I used to teach cake decorating, and I had employees also who would teach for me, so teaching was a form of income as well. Then I used to bring in other teachers to teach things. I also used to rent my kitchen out to people who wanted to use it for various things. I had various companies come and rent it out. Some people did it like they would do, I had a couple of mums who wanted to do birthday parties. I didn't offer birthday parties, although I think it can be a good idea. So they wanted their own, but they wanted to do it in a kitchen, so they rented my space. And then, I used to hire other teachers to come, from overseas or from other cities and teach in my kitchen. So I had multiple forms of income. And why I think that's really important to earning a living is cake is very seasonal. In fact, sweet products in general are very seasonal because we do them for events like weddings and birthdays and all that kind of stuff. In the wintertime or when the weather gets colder, we generally just don't have as many orders as we would have at other times of the year. Especially if you're a wedding person. There's definitely wedding high season and wedding low season. And so it's extremely seasonal industry, hugely seasonal industry. And so as a result, there are times when things just kind of lie a bit fallow. And at that time, if you want to bring cash in the door, the best way to do it is with other things. So I knew that in the wintertime, just as an example, in the wintertime, more people tend to have parties at home. So more mothers tend to be making cakes themselves. And so in the wintertime, I knew that I would still get orders for hiring of the stands, hiring of the cake pans, purchasing edible images, that kind of stuff. So I think the way to make a real living in this industry, if you're a sole person and if you don't want to expand into anything much bigger, is just expand what you can offer people. Go out and teach if you've been asked to teach. There's lots of options there, but basically I just wouldn't rely on one income stream. Exactly like I said before, I wouldn't rely on one platform to run my business, nor would I rely on one income stream to run my business. But the same is true of the blog. There's no way that I could survive on one thing. And besides which, things also tend to go in and out of fashion a little bit. So just as an example, I launched Confident Pricing earlier this year, and I'm super proud of that class. But the level of sales I made at the lunchtime is not going to be the same as it is now, obviously, because everybody's all excited about it at the beginning, and then as time goes on, it quietens down a bit. And my attention to it quietens down a little bit as well. So I think diversifying what you can offer is really, really, really important. And as much as you're capable of offering that, I would do it. I noticed actually that my friend Miranda, hi Miranda if you're watching, from Sweetsticks, she just started selling acrylic cake pop stands, which are really beautiful, and I actually think that's really smart. She teaches people how to make cake pops. Makes perfect sense that now she would also be selling the stands to display their beautiful work. So I think that's really cool. So diversifying is the way to go. Okay, so this is a question that, funnily enough, kind of leads on from that one, and this says, hi Michelle, I really don't want an employee. I just want to do this on my own. Is that okay? This is really interesting too. I love this one. Actually, all the questions people sent through were really, really interesting ones to me. I find actually one of the coolest things about the blog, I find, is getting able to hear about people's lives and circumstances and whatever. And Of course, there are commonalities in the industry where we all have had that client, you know, or we've all had that experience or whatever. But it's one of the great joys for me is getting to hear about people's personal experiences and personal life stories and their circumstances and how they're managing to make things happen. You know, I love that. Okay, so I don't want an employee, is that okay? So the first thing is anytime I get a question that has the is that okay to it, and that particular little is that okay thing comes up a lot. It comes up a lot because people look to me or look to others, not necessarily me, for validation of their ideas and how they feel about things. And you know, we are in an industry that doesn't really have a rule book, which sometimes is great and other times not so great, but doesn't really have a rule book. And so when we're sort of in the wild west of cake making, we're not really sure, is this the done thing? Is it okay to tell a client this? Is it all right to, you know, if I want to make my cakes black and purple, is that cool? Is that not cool? You know, that kind of thing. So anyway, is that okay? The answer to the is that okay part of the question is always going to be the same for me. And the answer is your business, your rules. Honestly, you're the one who makes the rules here. So I'm really, really happy for that to be the case, that I'm really happy with the case that you make your own rules about things. So if you don't want an employee, you know what? Don't have an employee. It's really that simple. My only caution is, a bit like I was talking about before with earning money, my only caution with that is, if you don't have an employee, totally cool, but just be aware that you're one person and there's only so many hours in each day, so many hours in each week. And physically, it's a pretty demanding job. Making cake is really quite physically demanding. It's also mentally and emotionally demanding because we're dealing with the general public. We're dealing with, you know, I'm not going to say divas, that's not right, but we're dealing with people at an emotional time in their lives. And it's a lot of work, okay? It's a lot of work. Anybody who tells me any differently is bullshitting you. Owning your own business is a lot of work. So do I think you have to have an employee? No, absolutely not. I know plenty of people who have been in this business for 10, 20, 30 years who never had an employee of any kind other than like their parent or their sister or, you know, I don't know, child or something helping them out a little bit. Totally cool. You don't want to have people helping? Don't have people helping. Not an issue. Just be aware that it will put limitations on you. And I don't want you burning out. And I think a lot of people burn out because of that. They get to the point where they probably do need help or they do need another set of hands. And rather than take on that set of hands, they kind of freak out and go, well, I don't want to hire anybody, you know, I'm a control freak and whatever. And then they end up burning out. So just be aware that there's limits to how much a person can manage, really. So if you don't want an employee, no problem. Well, you know, similarly, I think when it comes to employees, I've noticed that there's a little bit of an all or nothing thing. As in, some people seem to think that they have to go from no employees to suddenly hiring somebody, and it's this big dramatic thing. And oh my God, you know, by employee, that could just be somebody who helps you out one day a week. That could be, you know, another mom in the schoolyard who is looking for some part-time casual work, and you say to her, hey, every couple of weeks I have a really busy week, can you come and help me bag cookies or whatever? It doesn't need to be this huge dramatic thing. People think that hiring an employee is a huge dramatic thing. It doesn't need to start out as a huge dramatic thing. In my case, my first employees were like my kids and my husband, and I called them employees because, I don't know, made me feel important, I think. But after that, I had a girlfriend who would come and work for me one day a week, and it was a very casual thing. I paid her cash. It was a really relaxed arrangement. And then as time went on, again, I got more formality about that. I think that's important for us to remember. You know, you don't come out of the gate. Look, unless you have a ton of money behind you, which some people do, which is awesome, you kind of start things out a little bit budget, you know, and then you kind of get a little bit better and get a little bit better and get a little bit better and get a little bit better. This is true of websites. This is true of packaging for your clients. This is true of hiring employees, right? You start out with the random casual person and eventually you get to the point where you're hiring people properly, right? This is true of like little stuff too, of business cards. Oh God, do I actually have one? Oh, I should have kept it. I kept it, but I don't know where I put it. So my first business card, this is hilarious, came from Vistaprint. Right, and at that time, Vistaprint was not nearly as sophisticated as now, and they had like, I don't know, 10 designs. Right now they have like 3 billion, but they had like 10 designs for business cards, and the only one that was vaguely, and I mean vaguely, food related had a cherry pie on it. So my business cards had a cherry pie on, picture of a cherry pie in like a not like a woodland theme, but like it was a cherry pie with like a sheaf of wheat, and like, like a checkered tablecloth and stuff. Really bad, really really bad. And then I had my name, and I gave myself a title. I was Chief Sweetie, because I don't know, that seems funny. I had my phone number, and I'm pretty sure that was it. Actually, that was all that was on there, and I used those for years. Can I tell you, I've never baked a cherry pie in my life. In fact, I wouldn't even know where to begin. I'd have to totally Google that. No idea, absolutely no idea how to bake a cherry pie. But that was the nearest thing I could find to kind of a baking or food related card that was even vaguely related. I don't know why I didn't just go with one of their plain ones. I don't know, I think maybe I thought it would be memorable that way. Anyhow, these days my business cards look way cooler, and now they're branded and they have the right colors and they have way more information on them. But you kind of incrementally upgrade your business as you go, and that's true for pretty much most of the things you're going to do. Okay, this is like confession time on things I upgraded. So when I first went into business, like really, really early days, and I was doing it from home, fully legally, by the way, I don't bullshit about that. Okay, so I didn't know who to buy boxes from, right? Like white bakery boxes from. I didn't know who to buy boxes from. I wasn't kind of hooked into that wholesale network. Oh, I can't even believe I'm telling you guys this. It's so embarrassing. Anyway, I've gone too far now. Now I have to tell you the story. So I didn't know who to buy boxes from, but I knew that it wasn't okay to just like hand someone a cake not in a box. And at that time, cake decorating stores didn't sell boxes as well. You couldn't buy boxes from cake decorating stores either. This is ridiculous. Anyway, so I knew that I needed boxes, but I didn't know local bakeries, like normal bakery stuff. And I basically lied, and I told them that I was doing an art project, and I needed white bakery boxes to do this art project or whatever. And I would say, so can I just buy like 1 or 2 boxes off you or whatever? And a whole bunch of people gave it to me for free because I just lied and said it was an art project for my kids. And some of them were like, oh, I don't know, give me $1 or something. And I was like, oh, okay. And I always offered to pay. To be fair, I always offered to pay. But literally for like a couple months there, until I figured out where to buy boxes from, I seriously just walked straight into bakeries and asked if I could buy a single box at a time. And pretty much every time I had an order, I would just go and buy one box. And I always made sure not to go to the same bakery too often, because I mean, how many art projects can a person really have? Anyway. Point being, I eventually got to the point where I bought plenty of boxes on my own, 50 boxes at a time or whatever it was. But yeah, it was embarrassing. And yeah, anyway, you will upgrade, okay, is what I'm telling you. You will not need to like pimp yourself out all over town buying one box at a time is what's going to happen. So that's true for everything. That's true for employees. That's true for business cards. That's true for packaging. It's true for everything. You start somewhere and then you get better somewhere. With the blog, same thing. Originally, I had a Blogger blog, which was terrible looking. Somebody told me it looks like it came straight out of the 70s. Fine. So now I've upgraded it because I can afford to at the time. All right, so I'm just going to get on to some of the questions I got by email, which I didn't write down because I didn't have the opportunity to. Okay. All right, so let's start with, this is Butterbug's Baked Goods. Which, can I tell you, what a cute name. Butterbug, that's adorable. Okay, so this is Wendy, and Wendy says, hi, Michelle. I need to hire a person to work part-time. We're all about hiring today. I need to hire a person to work part-time, and I'd like it to be an apprentice position. What do you recommend I look for in an applicant? I have multiple people that are interested in helping me. I'm just not sure how to choose. Well, that is a fantastic question, actually. So I am a big fan of hiring for personality and training for skill. Some people train for skill and hire for personality second. I do it the other way around. I hire them for their personality and I train for their skill. And this is why. I think when you work in a small business and it's just you and someone else, that if you don't get along, if you don't have a personality match there, good Lord, it is going to be horrible, because it's only the two of you. And if you don't like them, and if you don't respect them, and if they're not on the same wavelength as you, that is just never going to work. It just won't. Now, I'm not saying hire somebody completely green. So I like to hire people who either have an interest in it or who themselves have kind of dabbled in it a little bit. I don't ever hire somebody who just goes, oh, I love cake. I like to hire somebody who has at least tried cake decorating a couple of times and who can show me a little bit of what they've done. But for me, the number one hiring thing is personality. I have to get along with them. And if I have a number of people to choose from, I'll always pick the person I like most. And let's say I have 4, or who I think I'll get along with most and who I think I can work with most. And another part of that too is, the person who you think will take direction from you best. So if it's somebody who you think you would struggle to give direction to, because you're the boss here, right? So if it's somebody you think you would struggle to give direction to, that's a tough one. It has to be somebody who you respect, but somebody who you believe will respect you. So that's also a personality thing. I once hired a girl who had an amazing skill level. Like, her skill was unbelievable. She could run rings around me as a decorator, but as a result, she never really respected me. And so when it came time for me to say, "You need to do this now," or whatever bossy type things I wanted to say, she just didn't take to it well, and so it didn't work well at all. So hire for personality, train for skill, because you can train people to work in the way that you want them to. And probably the other thing that I'd say about that is make sure you have a trial period. So here in Australia, it's very common to have a 3-month trial period. And actually, a trial period goes both ways, meaning you're trying them out, but they're trying you out. The way that I've always hired people is I meet them, I like them, I think their skills will fit with me. I invite them to come in for a 1-day paid trial. Some people do this unpaid, but I'd always prefer to give them some money. Invite them to come and I see how they work. Are they super, super slow? Everyone's going to be slow in the beginning. Are they super slow though? Like not redeemable slow? Do I get on with them? Do they show initiative? I bring them in for a 1-day trial. If the 1-day trial works out all right, I'll generally make a conditional job offer, and I'll say, "Yep, welcome to come and work for me." There's a 3-month trial period, at the end of which either party could back out. And why I think this is super important for both people is because people have a very romantic notion of what it must mean to work in a cake business, right? They think they get to hang out all day, and they get to pipe beautiful flowers, and put on like one cashew at a time, and it's all so beautiful and romantic. And they know nothing about the dishes, and the cream boiling over for the ganache, and the freaking mess we make. Like, no matter how neat you are, it's messy. And they don't know about the dishes, and they don't know about all that kind of stuff. So generally speaking, I like there to be a trial period so that they can try out what it's really like to work in a cake business, and I can try out what they're like. And at the end of 3 months, we sit down and we go, "Cool, are you happy? Yes, are you happy? Or not, or whatever," and we hash it out. So hire for personality and train for skill. Now, my colleague Sharon tends to do it a little bit the other way around. She hires for skill more because she needed an employee that could do her job when she wasn't there. So that's a little bit different. She would also hire for personality, but skill was more important to her, whereas I was more happy to train people up. So that's what I'd say in terms of hiring somebody. If you're presented with a bunch of options, and by the way, awesome that you're presented with a lot of options, I'd still hire personality. In a small business, I think you can't get around. If somebody's personality is crap, can't get around it. If their piping skills are crap, you can get around it. Okay, so this one is from Anna. Hiya, it says, my question, which may be also helpful to others, all questions are helpful to others, Anna, is what's the best wording to quick start a new mail app? For example, sending an email to old or existing clients, or maybe just inquiries, who have emailed in the past, and I just want to let them know that I might send them an email here or there. Okay. So I'm assuming that what Anna's talking about here is she's talking about, like, if you want to start sending a newsletter, how do you start sending a newsletter and let people know that you'll be coming into their inbox once in a while? Really, this one's actually super easy. You send an email, newsletter, however, whatever procedure you want to do. If you want, I actually send my emails via MailChimp, which is entirely free up to 2,000 subscribers. I suggest that most small businesses start with that. There's other organizations that do that, Aweber, Entreport, jillions of them. MailChimp is super easy and it's free. Well, if you have under 2,000 subscribers, it's free. There's a couple of paid features. But basically, I just send an email saying, "Dear whatever, dear whoever person, dear subscriber, whatever you want to say, you are receiving this email because," and you would say, "You're receiving this email because you're a previous client of ours, you've dealt with us before, you sent through an inquiry, you indicated you were interested in hearing from us, whatever. You are receiving this email because," and then you say what you're going to do, which is, "Blah blah cakes will now be sending a newsletter once a month." And then you say why they're going to want to read it, okay? You want to have a line in there where you're convincing them why they want to read it, okay? So you'll say, "The newsletter will include free recipes, special deals for email subscribers, unique content for, people who follow me," whatever it is. Give them a compelling reason to follow you. You want them to open that email, read that email, so that the next one that comes, they're not unsubscribing. So I just keep it really, that first one, really, really short and sweet, and that's it. Pretty much 3 or 4, a quick paragraph. I always like to include something visual, so a picture of you with a cake, a picture of a couple of your cakes in the bottom, and I basically made that first one, anytime I've started a newsletter of any kind, that first one is very much letter format, kind of casual email format, casual contact format. Getting in touch with these people, saying hello, and just letting them know what's going to happen from here on in. That's it. So it'd be something like, Dear Jane, welcome to the Michelle's Cakes newsletter. You're receiving this email because you're a prior client of ours, and we've decided to start communicating with our clients more often to let them know what's happening at Michelle's Cakes. In future newsletters, which will come out monthly, you'll be getting special deals, cake of the month, and we'll let you into a little bit of behind the scenes action that happens here. Thanks so much for reading, and we'll catch you then in our next newsletter. Lots of love, Michelle, or whatever. And that's it. And in the subject line, I'd make the subject line compelling too. I wouldn't call it spring newsletter. I wouldn't call it, I don't know. Just don't call it something boring. Just be like, hello from Jane Cakes or Michelle Cakes or whatever, or ask a question. This is a really great email tip. I don't always do this in my newsletters, but I do it sometimes. If the subject line of an email is a phrase or a question, and then the answer is in the email, it's a really great way to get them to open it. Okay, so let me think of a good example. I don't know. Let's say this is a terrible example, but it's just off the top of my head. Let's say your subject line says knock knock. Most people will open the email to find out who's there. I know, sounds crazy, right? But they read it and they go, oh, and they're almost compelled. You know when someone tells a story and you hear the beginning of the story, you're compelled to hear the end of the story. You want to know what happens next, right? Same is true in an email. So, or like I often ask a question. I might say, my email subject lines, if any of you get my newsletter, which if you're regular readers of the blog, you probably do, and the email subject line might say something like, what do babies and cakes have in common? And you're like, what are babies? I don't know. And it'll make you open it because you're compelled to read it. So make your subject lines compelling. You can actually Google this, compelling subject lines, and you'll find lots and lots of answers on it. Compelling subject line. But yeah, and on that first email, just a really quick one. Hi, letting you know this is what we're doing. Would love to be in touch. That's it. And then, obviously, by the way, I would not then wait a month to send your next email. If your email's coming out monthly, I wouldn't then wait a month. I really wouldn't. I'd probably wait 2 weeks. I wouldn't wait much longer. A month then is, from an introductory email to your first newsletter, a month is too long to wait. I wouldn't leave it that long. I do it much closer. Okay. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for the invite. I'm going to try to stay up late, but I'm not feeling well. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling well either, but, you guys have to deal with my nasally voice. Okay. Could you consider giving us some pointers on finding premises and how to make this work? My dream is to own a cafe, but we're overwhelmed with cafes and coffee shops in our small town, so I'm thinking more in terms of a unit dedicated to my baking business with space to deliver small workshops. Many thanks, Joe. So, Joe, I'm guessing you're probably in the UK because you talked about staying up late to talk to me, and I know it's late at night. I know there. Okay, so how to find a place. This actually took me a little bit longer than I wanted it to take. But here's what I think. If you don't want a cafe in a cafe sense, meaning people come in and eat cookies and coffee or whatever, totally fine. So essentially what you're looking for is what I would call maybe a cake studio, where you produce things there, maybe you teach there, etc. But it's not like people can just walk in and walk out. So for me, the things that were most important was, the first thing was location. What I mean by location is, meaning I wanted something that was suitable for my family. So I'm not talking about location from a customer point of view. I'm talking about location from a lifestyle point of view. That was really important to me, to have something nearby my kids so that they could either walk or take the bus or whatever, find a way to be near me if they needed to, and I could get home quickly if I needed to. Location from that point of view was important. So I'd be thinking about lifestyle factors. This sounds silly and obvious, but I'd be thinking about cost. Is it something you can actually afford or not afford? And the way to start that is just go out and pick some commercial properties. Don't worry about the size or the shape or the location in detail, and just find out what do they cost. find out what's the going rate on commercial property around you. And things like location and things like cost will start to narrow down your choices and your options anyway. So that's a really good way to start. It's just location thing. The next thing is suitability for use. So different councils have different rules on this stuff. Also, sometimes certain streets will only allow certain kinds of businesses. And then there's issues of like parking. If you're going to be teaching, right, you're going to need some place that's going to allow people to park for several hours. Or there's going to need to be a car park nearby or somewhere that people are parking lot nearby where people can come in and stop and stay. So suitability for use. How suitable is this area or this location for what I'm wanting to do here? And then obviously space. Is the inside going to be the right space, the right shape, the right whatever to allow me to do it? Location comes back onto the list now in terms of walk-in work. Now, I know it's not a cafe, but when I first opened my business, my very first location that was outside of home was inside. It was like a factory kind of a situation. So there was no walk-by or drive-by custom at all, which was fine by me because it was just a kitchen. That's all I really wanted. I didn't need a shop front per se. I was not teaching. It was literally just a commercial premises where I could make cake, and that was it. But I noticed that it actually, I wouldn't say it hurt my business, but it certainly kept it from growing because people wanted to be able to walk into something, even if it was just a showroom with a few display cakes. People wanted to walk into something. And when I had to consult with clients, it was a little bit awkward. Now, as it happens, that location had like a little conference area, but it was fine for what I needed, but it wasn't great. So when you are thinking about location, if you don't want walk-in work from a retail point of view, that's fine. But I do think there's a really good value in having some sort of window front. Even if you're in a side street, that's fine. You don't have to be on the main high street or anything, but something where you can display a little bit of your work in the window. If you're not open all the time, that's okay because you're a cake studio, but it's wonderful to be able to have a display space to put dummy cakes, a little thing on the wall where people can come and pick up a business card if they're walking past at closed hours, that kind of thing. I do think that there's really good value in having window space. So that's something to think about too. And one of my biggest tips with looking for new premises and how to make it work is a lot of councils require you both. I know in the UK this is true, and actually in the US as well, and certainly here in Australia, a lot of premises require that food businesses meet certain requirements, right? Certain flooring, certain sewerage issues, water issues, whatever. It's really great if you can find a location that previously was a food business. So if it used to be a cafe, or it used to be a restaurant, or it used to be a food business, that's a really good thing because it probably means that it already has a lot of the stuff in place that it needs, all the compliance things that it needs, and it also means that it probably previously got approved as a food business. So if you can find somewhere that used to be a food premises of some kind, I generally recommend doing that because then you're sort of halfway there already. It's not going to be as hard as if you're just finding a shell and needing to dump a bunch of stuff, infrastructure into it. So that would be a good thing if you can find it. If you can't, it's not a barrier by any means, but if you can, I think that's a really good idea. So for me, I started out looking at location, and I literally kind of took a map and went, yeah, within 5 kilometers or 5 miles of home, this is where I want to be. And then I just started, the first thing I did, I just jumped online, looked at a commercial property real estate website, and just went, okay, if I were to rent commercial property in this area, what would it cost me and what would I get for that kind of money? And then I just kind of narrowed it down and narrowed it down and narrowed it down and narrowed it down and narrowed it down from there. Now, if you don't want your own property, right, and not everybody wants the responsibility of their own property, totally cool. There are other options for properties which are not your own. So I've heard of people who rent catering kitchens from catering companies in their off hours. I've heard of people who are making cake at bars and restaurants, and that sounds crazy, right? But bars and restaurants that are closed on the weekend or whatever, or they're doing their baking in the morning. And somebody I know actually did it, and get this, right? A nightclub kitchen. I know that sounds nuts, but the nightclub only ever opened late at night. So she had all day in which to bake in their kitchens, and they had kitchens because they used to do bar snacks and stuff. So church halls, scout halls, sporting venues, there are actually a lot of places where there are kitchens or kitchen facilities that you can rent. I'm not going to lie, those things are a lot harder to find. They're a lot harder to find. But if you can find them, They're a brilliant, brilliant way to start because you're not stuck with rent and responsibilities and overheads and stuff like other people will be. So that's actually a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant way to start, is if you can hire space from somebody else. Another option is to share space with somebody. So let's say you do cake and she does cookies or whatever. If you guys can go in together and share space, also a brilliant, brilliant way to do it. And my last tip for finding space is, a lot of cake makers I know have had really good luck using light industrial areas. So if they don't want to be on the high street and they don't want the walk-in custom, but they want to have a place that doesn't cost a lot to rent and it generally has a lot of parking and stuff, light industrial. So the kind of places, you know, those kind of places where it's like a bunch of warehouses and stuff. Those are often really great places because there's usually lots of space, plenty of parking, roller door access, all that kind of stuff. And people can come in and see you and you can have things on display. There's not the walk past custom that you would otherwise get, but it's a really good way to start. So light industrial is often a really good place to start as well. So yeah, can I say finding a place feels like it's really tough, but it's really fun. It's actually really fun and it's really exciting. And it can be a little bit frustrating in the beginning. There was a lot of places I applied for and didn't get, but when the right place comes along, it's exciting. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, so I'm going to carry on to the next question. Hang on one second. All right. So, all right. So this is from Gloria, who I think is in Mexico. So, because half of this is in Spanish. My Spanish skills are terrible, Gloria. I'm really sorry. Okay. Hi. I sometimes feel I must offer a discount to the customers that are also my friends. Any of you watching this would have this problem. But I really don't want to do that anymore. It's happened that whenever I offer a discount, they just don't know the true worth. What do you suggest as to how to implement a no discount policy without offending anyone? Many thanks for this opportunity. So, hola, Gloria. This is actually a really, really, really good question. And this is a really good question because we have all run into this. And we've all run into it because we've all started our businesses with our family and friends, right? They were our very first customers, and we gave them cakes for nothing because we didn't know how to price. And we gave them cakes for nothing because we loved them, really. So I think that it's quite hard to implement a no discount policy for your family and friends. You absolutely could. I never felt comfortable with that. I did think about it, but I never felt comfortable with that. So what I did was I created an official family and friends policy. What I mean by official is it was actually written down somewhere and it was non-negotiable. So I decided what the family and friends discount was going to be. In my case, by the way, it was 25% off retail and free delivery within 50 kilometers or whatever. I can't remember what the distance was, but it was free, essentially free delivery, and 25% off retail. And that was the official friends and family policy. And I also decided who qualified as my family and friends. So my family was basically my immediate family, plus like cousins or whatever. And friends was people who, really, there's not a lot of people on that list. Not that I don't have friends, but there's not a lot of people who I was willing to give a discount to. So it was kind of like my immediate group of best friends. And that was about it. So just because you knew my mother, father, sister, brother at some point didn't qualify you for a friend's discount. Just because our kids went to school together didn't qualify you for a friend's discount. It's a pretty short list of the amount of people that I had on that list. So firstly, decide who is going to be friends and family, then decide what the official friends and family discount is going to be, and then you implement it. And so what happens is the next time your cousin comes to you and says, hey, Gloria, so I want a cake and you're going to do me a deal, right? It's actually easier than it seems. And you say, actually, assuming she's on the list, right? Okay, assuming she's on the list. Actually, I have a family and friends discount, so I'd love to make you a cake. The retail price is X. Because you're family, your discount is Y. So why this is useful is because firstly, you're making it really clear that they're getting a special deal because they are your family and or friend, okay? You say to them, I have an official policy about this. I'm running this as a business now, and so things are a little bit more formal than they used to be. And my official family and friends policy is this, right? And then you also tell her what the original price was and what your discounted price was. And the reason I want you to tell her that is so she sees the value. And so she understands it's a special deal. And one of the cool parts about having a family and friends discount and saying, I'm especially giving it to you, is because it makes them feel special. And when they feel special, it's kind of like, oh, I got the family and friends discount. She doesn't just offer that to anyone. You have to be in the inner circle to get it. And they're then therefore not going to go and tell a million people, oh, I got a deal, oh, it was cheap, oh, I whatever, which you don't want that to happen. So make an official policy, decide who that policy applies to, and then just be really, really obvious about it. Now, look, if you truly don't want to give a discount of any kind, like if you're just like, that's it, how do I make it a no discounts policy, full stop, then you know what? Your business, your rules. And this one is a little bit harder to say. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit harder to say to somebody, but you can just say, look, I know I totally used to give you cakes on the cheap when I was just starting out, but I'm now trying to make this into a real business, or I am now making this into a real business. And so I've got to be a lot more formal and a lot more clear about stuff. And I just can no longer afford to give cakes away basically for free. So the price of my cake is this. I'd love it if you ordered from me, but if not, I totally understand. That's it. And then you walk away. And then if they don't order from you, they don't order from you. You know, truly, family and friends are your clients in the very beginning, but eventually you will find that they drop off. And they drop off because they either can't afford you, which is fine, you know, they don't really need to afford you, or it's too awkward for them, or whatever. I can tell you that almost all of my clients in the beginning were my family and friends, and by the time I sold my business, I think I had one friend who still ordered from me, and I didn't care. I actually don't want my friends to order from me, because when they do, you feel this like sense of obligation that you've got to give them like a million times more than what they actually offered, or what they actually ordered, or you've got to just, you know, you're way more stressed out because you're a guest at that party or whatever. I actually really liked it when family and friends said, oh, I'm really sorry, Michelle, but I went to somebody else. I'd be like, yay, so glad you did that. Bye-bye. So really, if you don't want to have a discount policy at all, totally okay, your business, your rules. I just be really clear about that and just say, this is a real business. I need to make money now. This is how I'm affording to live, and move on. I do think it's nice to have a family and friends policy. Just be really clear of A, what the policy is, and B, who actually gets that, because it's not going to be everybody, and everyone's going to try, by the way, and everyone's going to try. By the way, if there are people who don't actually, if there are people who actually don't get your family and friends discount, like if there are people who don't qualify, don't tell them about it, right? So if somebody comes to you and says, oh, hey, Michelle, you know, I'm your mother, father, sister, brother, uncle, whatever, and I want your family, or, you know, are you going to do me a good deal? You just don't tell them there is a family and friends policy. You just say, okay, I'd love to make that cake for you. It's $150. Then like silence, nothing else, no more talking. End of story. Okay, so by the way, I make it sound really easy. Sometimes it's not that easy to say that kind of stuff. Sometimes you have to rely on email to make it easier to say, because saying it out loud is not that hard. I'm sorry, not that easy. So it's okay. However you need to say it, you say it. The important part is that you do say it. Okay, so, oh, a couple have come in the last minute or two. So actually, let me just quickly say that it is now, we've got about 3 minutes. So I'm going to do 2 more questions. You know what? I really should do this again, because this is like super fun. Well, I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun. I'll answer a couple more that I just received now by email. And then I might plan another one of these in like a month's time. So if you have any questions that I didn't get to, or that I didn't see, or whatever, just send me an email. It's michelle@thebizofbaking.com. I'm happy to answer you. As I said in the beginning, right, the first question was, do you answer every email yourself? I do. So you're welcome to email me any questions you've got. You're always welcome to interact with me via the blog or Facebook or whatever. I might do this again in a couple of weeks' time, just because I'm having a good time, really. But in the interim, yeah, send it through and I'll answer it. Okay, so here we go. Hi, Michelle. Oh, I'm watching you over there. Oh, hi, Rini. I hope I said that right. I'm excited. Somebody's actually watching. It feels a bit more important now. Okay, I've just started out, but I'm not having many orders. I've advertised on Facebook, local websites, as well as having a website. How can I get more business? So firstly, yay you for having a website. That's exciting. How do you make people who inquire come back, especially making them a better offer when they ask for 2-tier cakes for $65 or say it's not feasible? Okay, so there's actually 2 questions there, Rini. One is, how do I get more business? And 2, how do I get them to come back, even if they wanting something super 2 tiers for $65? Are they like in dreamland? That's totally not going to happen. So getting more business, firstly, you're doing all the right things. So let me just say that. Advertising on Facebook, local websites, having a website, all of that is awesome. Getting more business is just about time. I know you don't want to hear that. I know you want me to just say, wave this magic wand and you get a billion orders. It doesn't work that way. It's a matter of timing, and meaning you have to be doing those things consistently. The website needs to be there consistently. The local advertising needs to be there consistently. So briefly, there's a concept called a sales funnel. Any of you guys can Google this if you want more information. So imagine what a funnel looks like, right? Wide at the top and skinny at the bottom, yeah? And the way that a sales funnel works is that if you imagine at the top are all your inquiries, anybody who wants cake or what you sell, right? Imagine that that's all the people at the top, right? And then as they go down the funnel, they get closer and closer and closer. And when they drop out of the funnel is when they order from you, all right? Or they don't order, but we want them to be ordering from you. And imagine that as they go down the funnel and it gets narrower and narrower and narrower. At the top, let's say they've Googled cakes Mexico or whatever it is, okay? And then my dog is destroying the joint. And then they find you, right? So they go, oh, her cakes look interesting, and they click to your Facebook page, okay? So they get further down the funnel. And then they click on your website and they get further down the funnel. And then they're interested, so they send you an email, so they get further down the funnel again. So with each point of contact, they're getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to you until obviously they reach the point where either they decide you're not the person for them or it's too expensive, whatever they decide their reason for not ordering is, or they put in the order. So your job to get more orders is to start out with more people at the top. Okay, you need more people at the top so that obviously as they fall through and fall through and fall through, you get more people at the bottom. If you're starting with 10 at the top and your conversion rate is 10%, that means you're getting one order for every 10 people that are inquiring. So there are two parts to this for me or for anybody. One is to make sure that you're getting more people on top. So keep up the good marketing work. We do not give up on the marketing and do as much of it as you reasonably can. Okay, don't give up on it. Be consistent about it too. So if you're advertising on local websites, keep those going for longer than 5 minutes because marketing doesn't happen overnight. And also, people will meet you at various points in that funnel. So let's say they see that local website and then they're going to go to your website and then they're going to go to your Facebook and then they're going to email you. So people will come and meet you at various points. So you want to make sure that the top of that funnel always has as many people going into it as possible. And the second part of that is in confident pricing, I talk about one of the important things you've got to learn is how to close the deal. Closing the deal, super, super, super important. How do you close the deal? You basically ask for it at the end of the email. So you send through a quote and you say, dear Jane, your cake will be this much, blah, blah, blah. The last bit of that email is not, so get back to me if you'd like to order. It's not some vague, open-ended, random thing. It's basically, I'd like, to book that in, you pay the deposit. Or this date is just about booked, so I need to know by Friday if you'd like in. You basically make it a no-brainer for them to close the deal with you, make it really easy for them to close the deal with you, and two, you kind of act as if you already have the order. So that end of that email shouldn't go, so that cake is $150. Love, Michelle. Or that cake is $150. That cookies are $150. If you're interested, get back to me and let me know. No, none of this. If you're interested, get back to me and let me know stuff. That's just not going to happen. It's here's how to pay the deposit. Here's what I need to hear from you by. I'd love to do that order for you, etc. You need to solve their problem. Their problem is that they need this cake or this product done, and you're the woman to do the job. How do you solve it for them? You get it done and you make it easy for them. One of the biggest pieces of feedback I always used to get in my business was you make it easy to work with you. Yes, because I solve your problem. I don't drag this thing out forevermore. If you've got a phone number, even better. Call them and give them the quote over the phone and say, I can take a credit card over the phone right now if you like, or whatever. Or here's my PayPal address and here's how you pay me. So close the deal. So one, keep that marketing going, and two, work on closing the deal. Now, in terms of how do you make people who inquire to come back or make them a better offer, don't make them a better offer. That's negotiating, and you don't want to go negotiate prices. Honestly, that's ridiculous. If somebody's wanting 2 tiers for $65 and you can't do anywhere near that, negotiating just makes you feel like shit. Because you get to the end of the negotiation process and you're like, man, I know that cake's worth $200 and I just gave it to her for $50. What was I doing? And you'll feel resentful and crappy. So I would not recommend negotiating. Ever. In that case, if they come back to you and say too expensive, go okay, right? So you can give it a shot. You can say, look, I know that it's expensive, or not expensive. I wouldn't use that word. You can say, I know that it might be out of your price range. However, we use organic products, offer free delivery, we're the best ones in town, whatever. You can try to sell it a little bit more, but I wouldn't just come back with, oh, I can do better. Because that means that every time they order from you, they're going to want you to do better. And worse, they're going to go and tell their friends, I got this amazing cake. And guess what? She quoted me $100, but I got it down to 50. You do not want the reputation as the negotiable lady. Worst idea ever. So don't do that. No negotiating, but keep up the great work on the marketing. I will be coming out with my marketing course a little bit later in the year. In case you guys are wondering, that's my next online course that's coming out, which is super exciting. And I'm actually going to talk about how many different places I think you need to market and how much money I think you should spend on those things. And I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more practical detail, like actual detail about how much and when and where. It is just a matter of time. Really, honestly, it's a little bit like a snowball rolling downhill. So you start doing a little bit of advertising and it just takes time. One leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. My other thing I would say about marketing is I think it'd be really good if you start now to do things like newsletters, thanking people for their order, recommending that they do online reviews for you. You want to create raving fans from the get-go. There's no better marketing in the world than a raving fan, I promise you. So from now, anybody who orders from you, get a testimonial from them. Even better if they can do it on an external website. Even if you just have to call them or email them and say, hey, just wanted to know what you think. I'm trying to build my business, so any feedback you can give me would be great. Did you enjoy it? Most people will write back and say, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Some won't. Okay, fine. But start from now to get raving fans and use those raving fans as part of your marketing. Put the testimonials on your website. Put the testimonials on your Facebook page. You can even do a Facebook ad, which is a testimonial, like a picture and a whatever. Jane loved her cake. This is what she had to say about it. You can have one too, at this address or whatever. So start developing raving fans, because raving fans bring other raving fans, and that's the way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to do one more, because then I'm truly going to be over time. So hold that thought. Let me find one more, because it's like a gajillion of them there. Oh, somebody asked me, will this be posted elsewhere? So, okay, so it's going to stay live on the blog, so you'll be able to read it on the front page of the blog, businessbaking.com, and you will also be able to see it on my YouTube channel. So if you search Michelle Green or the Business of Baking on YouTube, it'll be permanently there. I'll leave it up there as publicly. Okay. Okay. This is a really interesting one. I'm going to read you this one. So this one says, my partner doesn't think that my cake business is a real business. Because I don't leave the house and go to an office, he just thinks it's a hobby. And I'm not actually making much money either, which doesn't help the situation. I'm really, really frustrated that he calls it a hobby, because to me, it is a business. Sure, I'm not making a ton of money, but that doesn't mean it's not a business. How do I get him to realize and respect that this is an actual business? Oh my God, this is like, I just stepped into a minefield. Okay, so not having a partner on board sucks. Not even going to pretend that that's not the case. It actually, I think, makes a massive difference when you have your partner on board. But worse is when they treat you like you are just the little woman or whatever. And it's not a real business, and it's not making a bunch of money. And, in their head, a business is not a business unless it's making $1 billion or whatever. It's a really male thing, a very male thing, to see work as attached to a dollar value or attached to a place you go, or their definition of success is not the same as your definition of success, but that's the measure they have for you. So, because their business makes $50,000 as a real business, because you're making $5,000 is not a real business. It's such a rubbish comparison, but it's a very, very male thing to be like that. And I think for a lot of men too, they define themselves by their work, and they grew up in a time when work was not meant to be fun or enjoyable. It was a job, and you did the job to provide for your family, and that's it. So the idea of you playing with cake and having a good time or whatever doesn't feel like real work to them, because you're enjoying it. And a lot of people, I think, have that attitude that work's not meant to be fun, work's meant to be work. So I think that's really hard. And I think particularly in the beginning, when you are spending a bunch of money on cake toys and fun stuff, and they just see you as throwing money out the door and not making a lot back, because let's face it, you do a cake class for, $800 or whatever, like a 2-day amazing cake class, and then you sell a cake for $50. Look, anybody would look at that and go, that's not real business. You're spending way more than you're making. So look, it's not unreasonable for them to be like that. But my best advice on this is, the more you treat it as a business, the more they will treat it as a business. So the more you are treating it as some kind of random fun hobby, the more they will treat it as some random fun hobby. They will take their lead from you. If you take it seriously, or they can see you taking it seriously, they will also take it seriously, or at least they'll come more to the party. So how do you do this? Number one, open a business bank account. Seriously, it's not that hard. Put $100 into it. Start tracking those expenses. Start using the money you've earned from cakes to then pay for classes, okay? Even if it's just a hobby, start a separate bank account in your own name. I don't care what you do. Just start a separate bank account where the money you earn and the money you spend comes from there, okay? Speak in business terms. Use words like marketing. Use words like not sure about my profit, need to do a pricing class, whatever. Talk about it like it's a business, and they will start to treat it like it's a business. It's a mindset thing for them, but it's also a mindset thing for you, right? The more you treat it like a business, the more they will. If they see that every time you buy the groceries, you're sneaking in a packet of chocolate or whatever, and they're going, I would say, don't worry, I've actually put that money back into your account for the chocolate or whatever. Treat it seriously, and they'll treat it seriously. People take their lead off you. It's really hard not to have a partner that's supportive. Really, really exceptionally hard not to have a partner that's supportive. But if you don't have one that takes it seriously, the best thing you can do is you take it seriously, right? They're going to follow your lead. Open that bank account. Keep the money separate. Show them that you're improving your business skills, not just your thing. And you know what? Sit them down and tell them what your plans are. Sit them down. Be like, hey, so I decided I want to take this thing to the next level. I know you think it's a hobby, but I treat it as a business. And so I've got some goals for the next 6 months. I wanted to tell you about them. This is what I'm planning on doing. Are they going to necessarily approve or applaud or be excited for you right that minute? No, not necessarily. That's okay. But the more you plant the seed that you're treating this as a business, and you have real serious plans for it, and you have goals for it, and you have things you like to achieve for it, the more they start to see, oh man, she's actually serious about this thing. Huh. So it works. It totally works. But you need to have the right attitude so that they have the right attitude. And I'm not saying that not having their support is a reason to not do it, because I think that support is nice to have but not essential. I'm just saying it's really, really good if you can start to be the person you want to be, and they'll follow. They will. People take their lead on things. Exactly like clients. When you say, so I'd like to book that in for you now, they go, oh, okay. They kind of follow what you have started. So with unsupportive partners, they're giving you that shit about not a real job and not a real this and it's just a hobby and whatever. Okay, let them say what they want to say. You treat it as one. You do your best to convey that it is an actual business and that you have plans for it and you have dreams for it. And generally speaking, they will follow your lead. They might not ever be 100% approving. It's okay. You just keep doing your thing, babe, because you're going to get there. Okay, guys, so I've hung out with you this morning for a little bit over an hour, and I don't want to keep you off from going to work or going to bed or whatever, wherever you are in the world. I hope you enjoyed this session. Like I said, I'll probably do it again in a couple of weeks' time, but in the interim, if I missed your question or you wanted to ask me something one-on-one, please feel free to go ahead. I'm happy to answer questions by email. Sometimes it might take me a day to get back to you because there's might be a few of them after something like this. You're always welcome to see me on the blog. I'm teaching in Sydney next month, which I'm super excited about. There are 3 spots left if you want to come there. I'm teaching in the US in September, and there's spots everywhere except San Francisco and Tampa are nearly sold out, but the other cities have plenty of spots, and I'd love to see you. But otherwise, you are welcome to hang out on the blog with me or on Facebook or Twitter or G+, or wherever. I seem to be everywhere these days, and eventually get back to periscoping as well. But while I was sick, I couldn't do it. Hope you've had an awesome day wherever you are and an awesome week. And just remember, your business, your rules. You totally can do this thing, I promise you. I absolutely 100% believe we are all capable of amazing things and achieving amazing things. Maybe not always the speed at which we'd like, and maybe not always the manner in which we'd like, but you know what? All things are possible. Have an awesome day, and thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.